Everyone loves a good scare, and with video games becoming more and more advanced, so do the ways developers can use the progressing technology to come up with new and unique ways of terrifying the player. From quick, unexpected, and surprising jump scares to the dread and suspense of knowing exactly what's waiting in the moments to come. Nothing quite plays with our emotions like horror games. So, here are 10 of the scariest and most terrifying moments in gaming. If you're a fan of videos like this, please give us a like and comment below, letting us know what lists or topics you would like to see videos on in the future. Then, subscribe and click the notification button so you don't miss out when those videos go live. Number 10. Dead Space 2, the opening scene.
Ever notice that whenever you play a scary video game, you usually play as a valiant soldier or some brave officer of some sort? So basically not exactly the most accurate representation of who you really are. Well, how about a scared out of his mind engineer who doesn't care about how many headshots he gets or how to stop the menace from spreading? No, all you care about is getting your butt out of that cursed place in one piece if possible. Well, that's exactly the case for 2011's Dead Space 2, which has probably one of the scariest opening scenes of all time. Aside from your standard opening credit roll, the game places you in the arms of a fellow engineer who happens to get taken over by a necromorph, and then enter the player. This game literally throws you down, no training wheels, no introductions, within the grasp of a terrifying creature that'll kill you if you let it. Talk about an insane way to start a truly insane game.
Number 9. Outlast. Outlast and its sequel are both deserving to be on any horror game list. But let's focus on the first. It is shorter than many games, coming in at less than half of most. But it is the absolute most that I have ever been terrified while playing a game. It puts you in an isolated and haunted psychiatric hospital. You play as an investigative journalist with no weapons and only your camera. What makes it worse is that most of the game has you walking around in complete dark. The only way to see anything is by using the night vision on your camera. But if you run out of battery, you're just out of luck. It makes it a point to drive home that you have no weapons and absolutely no way to attack. The only defense you have is to run and hide. If someone catches you, the game's over. All you can do is run and hide. The problem here is the maze-like hallways that, in the dark, are sure to get you lost. So what are we running from? Crazy scientists? Insane doctors? Psychotic religious cult leaders? Serial killers? Giant brutes? Ghosts? And even demons. Number 8. Resident Evil 1, the first zombie reveal. Now, here's a classic for you. I don't even have to sing its praises. It's widely known just how impactful this game was to not just the gaming industry, but also to your blood pressure. This game was the pure definition of suspense, and with its unique third-person perspective, it's very easy to get immersed in the game. It also has one of the most iconic scenes in any horror game, and that is of course the zombie reveal scene. You want to know how you can pinpoint a liar? If they said they played this game and wasn't at least slightly creeped out by this zombie's glare. It's seriously nothing short of bone-chilling, but it helps in setting the mood for the rest of what would become the first game of a very successful franchise. And it all started with this scene. Next is a bonus. I don't think it should necessarily make a list for horror games, but it has some of the most unexpected jump scares. So I thought it was worthy of an honorable mention. Batman Arkham Knight, the ManBat. What do you get when you mix Golem from Lord of the Rings and the Batman Arkham series? You get this abomination, the ManBat. I think it's safe to assume that it's a major understatement to say that this creature is one of the strangest things to ever spawn in any video game. And the fact that it's in a Batman game, a series of games that are known for their relatively realistic antagonists, makes this monster all the more terrifying to encounter. 'Cause, I mean, come on. As you swing around the city, the last thing you'd expect is the literal spawn of Satan playing peekaboo from the edge of a building all nonchalantly. For a game that might not have been seen as positively as its two predecessors, at the very least, it stands out by scaring the you-know-what out of you with Winged Golem. Number 7. Nightmare House 2. The Dark Corridor. While Half-Life 2 isn't necessarily a horror game, Nightmare House 2, a modification for the game on PC, certainly is. In this first-person shooter survival horror game, you play as an individual who was driving alone at night through the woods. An accident causes him to crash nearby an enormous mansion, while attempting to find help from the resulting crash that was experienced. He finds out that the house is plagued with the spirit of a vengeful woman, as well as an undead creature who wish to kill the patient. I'm not gonna lie, it's already sounding like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. William Pugh, the creator of the award-winning adventure, The Stanley Parable, once described a scene in this game. He said, and I quote, "There was a section in that where they had a long, dark corridor that you'd fall down into. You'd walk to one end and find there was nothing there, so you'd head to the other end. Nothing there. So, you'd turn around, but every time you walked along the corridor, it would get shorter. You ended up in a little box. You'd be turning around trying to do stuff, but it's blank walls, and you can't do anything. Eventually, you look up, and there's a ghost right above you. It screams, the floor opens up, and you fall through. It plays with the whole thing that people never look up in first-person shooters. And that's really cool." Number 6. Silent Hill 3. The Mannequin Scene.
Don't you hate it when you're watching a horror movie and everything gets all quiet until suddenly some very loud noise is blasted in your face? Well, imagine that happening, but in a dark room filled with mannequins. That's what happened in 2003's Silent Hill 3. During the infamous mannequin scene, you walk into a dark room filled with mannequins, many of which headless. As you walk around the room trying to figure out what to do, you'll find that there's only one mannequin that still has its head. But then the moment you walk to the other side of the room, the silence is broken by a horrendous scream and an ominous thud on the ground. You run on over to investigate what that noise was, only to now find a new decapitated mannequin, topped with fresh blood both on the mannequin and on the ground. And all you can say to that is, this is blood. And are you slightly more terrified than you originally were? Yeah, you are.
Next up is another bonus. I am a huge fan of Zelda. That's no secret. As the many Zelda top 10 lists, theories, and other news videos on my channel allude to. So, putting a Zelda game at a numbered spot on this list would feel a bit biased. So when the geeky informant who helped out with this video came up with his own spot featuring Zelda, I thought, why not at least make it a bonus? So while he picked the Redeads, which we'll get into in a moment, I want to give a brief mention to the bottom of the well. Throughout the many hours of playing through Ocarina of Time, you come across several different dungeons and areas as a child and adult. The scariest up until this point is probably the graveyard, Hyrule Castle Town as an adult, overran with the Redead, being swallowed by a giant fish, or the eerie music in the forest temple. But none of this is too unnerving. This completely changes once you enter the bottom of the well. We have even creepier music, haunting images, and messages on the walls, a dread-filled atmosphere, actual coffins, buried bodies, skeletons, several common enemies, as well as mummies, or what Zelda refers to as Gibdos, Redeads, which we'll get into in just a bit, and the most terrifying to me, dead hands. When you find out what the actual purpose of the bottom of the well is, having an unnerving shiver down your spine is the least of your problems. But that's a Zelda theory for another time. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out when that video goes live.
When you try thinking of a scary game, the last thing you'd probably think of is a Zelda game. Well, that being said, if any of you ever played Ocarina of Time, I'm sure most of you would agree that the Redeads in that game are some of the creepiest characters ever to be developed. The moment it senses your presence, it immediately turns its head towards you, and as soon as you get close enough to it, its deafening screech literally paralyzes you in fear as it inches its way closer and closer towards you. Then once it gets close enough to you, it lunges onto your shoulders and begins to literally drain your life away completely against your will. If this wasn't bone-chillingly terrifying for you when you first played this game as a kid, then I don't know what is. I'll tell you right now though, personal experience of mine, I wasn't aware of how to get out of the Redeads grasp when I first played this as a kid. So I died many times trying to get out of the post-apocalyptic town market, each time having to hear that paralyzing screech and feel hopeless dread the moment I was caught by one of these abominations. Sure, it doesn't look like much nowadays, especially with the graphics not looking as crisp as they may have in 1998. But this nonetheless was the kind of stuff that messed you up as a kid, man, and there's no denying that.
Number 5, Five Nights at Freddy's 4, Freddy Catches You. Paranoia is one of the purest forms of fear that one can experience, and one franchise that has mastered the art of creating a paranoid atmosphere for the player is none other than Five Nights at Freddy's. The feeling of being confined to one space while the entire place is being stalked by possessed animatronics is nothing short of terrifying, and once one of them gets you in their grasp, they will immediately scream in your face and kill you on the spot. Absolutely traumatizing, but none are scarier than the death scenes in the fourth Freddy game, because unlike in the first game where the animatronics are intact, these are deteriorated, graphic-looking atrocities that not only kill you, but pick you up and scare the living crap out of you. To say that the Five Nights at Freddy games were some of the scariest games ever made would be a huge understatement. Number 4, Alien Isolation, Death Scenes. Most of you skilled horror game fanatics are probably already aware of the haven that is lockers or wardrobes in horror games. Once you hide yourself in one of those, you're basically invisible. No monsters can touch you. That is, unless you can't hold your breath. At least, that's the case in Alien Isolation. We are all aware of just how terrifying the designs are for the aliens from the Alien franchise. So to have one of these roaming around the place, looking for some fresh meat to eat up, aka you, is nothing short of scary. And just as I said earlier, you can't simply rely on hiding in a locker to save your butt, because this game added the feature of holding your breath. If that monstrosity is outside your locker, and you can't hold your breath, the alien literally rips you out of the locker, and then you're subjected to one of the most terrifying death scenes in horror gaming history. Well, at least you can still hide peacefully behind that pause menu. I'm thinking it's just a matter of time before a horror game exploits the pause screen, so don't get too comfy. Number 3, PT, the entire teaser.
Departing from the formula established in the original Silent Hill games, Hideo Kojima took on the daunting challenge of directing the brand new installment in the series and thus brought us 2014's PT, or in other words, the playable trailer for Silent Hills. Many praise this game for not just being a video game with horror elements, but an experience that brings genuine horror and fear to its player, using gameplay elements to further immerse the player. PT doesn't just use cheap jump scares to frighten its players, but instead offers a mystery that focuses in the confused player who's attempting to make sense of the situation, while in addition, slowly intensifying the creepy ambiance of the haunted corridor with every pass-through. It's truly difficult to pick out a specific scene from the demo as being the scariest, because the entire game is truly a feat in not only the Silent Hill series, but the entire horror gaming industry as a whole. That being said, it really sucks that the game ended up being cancelled. However, here's hoping that Death Stranding brings us an experience that rivals, if not tramples over, the one left by PT.
Number 2, Amnesia, The Dark Descent, the entire game. If there's anything worse than traversing through a creepy castle, it's doing so without the slightest memory of how you got there and how you get out. All you remember is your name and that something is hunting you. Well, this experience is what 2010's Amnesia, The Dark Descent brings you. What makes this game so unique is how it isn't your standard point-and-click game. That is, if let's say you want to open a door, In order to do so, you have to hold on to the mouse button, then push or pull the mouse. This gives a stealth approach to the game that isn't as easily interpreted in other horror games. The player must also keep track of the lead character's sanity, which is affected whenever you are exposed to much darkness for prolonged periods of time, or when you are noticed by the monsters in the game. Speaking of which, these monsters spawn at complete random, and can see you from a mile away if you are near a light source, but if you're not near the light, you can slowly go insane. Yeah, this game does a really good job at making you feel trapped, doesn't it? It's almost hopeless to try and beat this game, but you probably won't remember the traumatizing experience in the end. Finally, number 1, Resident Evil 7, the full experience. When played normally, Resident Evil 7 is a great horror game, but when played in VR, it becomes a truly terrifying experience. I'm not sure if it's due to fan feedback, or if Capcom took some inspiration from the huge positive reaction that the now cancelled PT had, but their choice to bring Resident Evil from its standard third-person perspective to first-person, and removing the more action-based gameplay mechanics of the past few games, it all takes Resident Evil back to its roots, which define the survival horror genre, but in a new, modern way. Resident Evil 7 puts you in close, confined spaces, giving you just enough ammo or weapons so you don't feel completely hopeless. Then continues to play with your emotions in almost every way possible, with almost perfect and clever uses of psychological horror, jump scares, gore, and many different types of horror. Resident Evil 7 is sure to not only play and toy with your emotions, it terrorizes you and truly gets under your skin. Again, I want to state playing this game normally in a dark room would be a 9 on a horror scale of 1 through 10. But experiencing the full game in VR, where you're fully immersed in the world, breaks the scale and brings it to an 11. Just think, this is Capcom's very first Resident Evil game using this new modern formula. If they were able to get 7 as great as it is, I can only imagine what kind of terror they will be able to bring with future games in this series, especially after the experience and everything learned from Resident Evil 7. If you're a fan of videos like this that cover the history of cancelled games and consoles, be sure to subscribe, check out our Patreon to support this channel and the creation of new videos with your advice and input, and check out our top 5 cancelled games series and let us know what games you would like to see us cover in the future. So far we have lists covering the Zelda series, Mario, Nintendo, PlayStation, and plan to have dedicated videos covering a list of cancelled Sonic and Pokemon games, with this video being a taste of what to expect. What's up everybody, Game Over Jesse here, and if you enjoyed this video and are into awesome nerdy geeky content like we are, consider subscribing to Geek Fuel, a monthly subscription box that is guaranteed to have over $50 worth of great stuff in every box. You'll receive an exclusive shirt, games, collectibles, and other geek-related greatness. Use the link geekfuel.com/GameOverJesse to not only get $3 off of your subscription, but to help out our channel as well, which means more time to work on more videos for you guys. I want to thank you all for watching this video, and welcome to the End Slate. If you're a fan of these videos, please subscribe and comment below to let me know your thoughts. If you would like to support this channel, please consider supporting on Patreon, where you can watch videos like this early, and help me create longer videos like the top 10 best and worst of Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, and the top 5 official Zelda games that have either been cancelled or just went unreleased. Finally, a huge thank you to this month's supporters: George Says Hi, Link Uses the Triforce, Transcendent Sacred Courage, Glenn Cassio, Prey Warrior, Victopedia, Rusty Caulfield, Robert W., Amanda Pina, Lunarium, Chris Gasparin, Harris Priest, Lovable Christie, Key of Time 15, Jerome Measure, Daryl Quinnen, Furzin 16, Kadron, Magic Tech Review, and the Itch Network. What's up, everybody?